Okay, so now that you have the wireframes, stretching a little bit, what to do is you don't then take the wireframes and start coding. Oh, that's horrible. Don't do that. Okay, what you do is you take the wireframes and then you put it into HTML and CSS, and the interactivity part you do jQuery. So anything that pops up, all the stuff should be done in HTML and CSS without doing any programming on the back end. Don't use PHP, Ruby, or Python to make it work. Just put HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And the reason you do that is, again, when you put things in mockups, sometimes the client will be like, you know what, it looked good on the wireframe, I don't like that, let's make some of these changes. Okay, so you can, if you haven't done any programming, to the site, if you just have things in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it's so easy to change. So you make all these changes and you go through each page and you make sure the site does exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, it not only saves you time, but at this point, you, developer, and the client knows exactly how the website should work, because all of that is, the developer knows it because he already spent all this time doing mockups. Then you don't have to explain how the application works. Now at this point, everyone on the table knows exactly how the application should work. So you shouldn't have to write specs. You can just say, as a user, I want to be able to update my password. Hey, I already have a mockup for that. So yeah, I already know exactly how that should be done. Oh, as a user, I want to be able to change my password, upload profile picture, whatever. You know exactly what page, and how it should work because you figured out all the interactivity. Okay? Alright, so again, if you don't do mockups, I have seen people where they do wireframes and then they skip the mockups. Now, if the wireframe instruction is so clear and you're just making a small change on an existing website, maybe you can skip the mockup. But if you're starting the project from scratch, don't skip the mockup. I mean, if you skip the mockup, again, you will convert things to HTML and CSS. You start working on the back end. The client looks at it. You're like, what are you doing? Make these changes. You're like, crap. I finished all this coding. I have to go and remove it, and it ends up taking twice or 3 times longer or more to make these changes. So don't do any before you do any back-end programming. Just get the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript done in the mockups, and make sure those are all approved and ready to go for the client. And again, the mockup, now we're not doing it for version 1000. We're just doing it for the first version, the first prototype. And then after the sprint cycle is done, maybe it takes 3 sprint cycles to finish version 1. And then you do version 1.1. You figure out, okay, now that we finish all these core functionalities, let's add these few more pages, or on this page let's add these features and whatnot. And then you do the wireframes, and then you can do mockups. At that point, because you already have existing site, maybe you don't need to do the whole mockup, but if you think it would help, you can still do it. And then on each sprint cycle, you just go and implement the new features for version 1.1. Okay, so all of these things go together. Okay, write a user story. Okay, write a user story and keep a track of the product backlog, sprint cycle log. Keep track of that in Asana, and do wireframes, mockups, and then do back-end coding. And use sprint cycle to keep iterating, make the product better and better. Launch a new version of the product each week or every 2 weeks, whatever the length of the sprint cycle is. So in the beginning, you probably want to do once a week for the sprint cycle. Later, when things get more established, you can do twice a week. But in a startup, I like to do once a week because things change all the time. All right, sounds good. Good luck. Bye.